Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Rob Edwards and today I'm talking Game of Thrones, and today is very much the day. It is Sunday the 19th of May 2019 and the final ever episode of Game of Thrones airs tonight, and I am super excited. Of course I live in Finland and HBO Nordic won't show that until... Actually, when I say tonight, really I mean early in the hours of tomorrow morning. So I'm not going to get to see it today. I'm going to get to watch it tomorrow when my wife gets home from work, because I can't watch it without her. That would be a bad thing. So expect my review of it and my summation of my thoughts of that later in the week, sometime sort of Wednesday, Thursday time I expect. In the meantime, I am here to get hype for that episode. I'm very excited and a little bit nervous about what we're getting in that episode, and also I'm here to do my spoilers and speculation as a result of the episode The Bells, last week's episode of Game of Thrones. Now, if you've had any kind of attention to the internet of Game of Thrones in the last week, you will know that The Bells has been quite a controversial episode. And I can see why. I'm not sure I agree with every bit of controversy which has been suggested for this episode, but let's get into it and let's get through the major stuff that happened in this episode. So we start with basically Tyrion throwing Varys under the bus, or under the dragon in fact, more accurately, and he tells Dany that Varys has been plotting against her, trying to poison her. I think that's certainly suggested at the start of the episode there with the girl from the kitchens. And Dany taking action against Varys. It is another point in the graph of Dany's turn to the dark side. We'll get back to that though. That brings us to what I think is probably my favourite part of this episode, which is where Tyrion, having been told by Daenerys that his brother's been captured, goes to Jaime and sets him loose, sets him free. Now, if there is anything still between Daenerys and Tyrion, that has just been shattered, because there's no way she's letting him away with that. But still, that scene between Tyrion and Jaime is spectacular. Those two actors are proving yet again just how good they are. Mirrors the scene, of course, when Jaime let Tyrion out. So there's nice kind of reflection back on earlier action in the series there, which is really good, really quality stuff. Am I happy that Jaime is here in King's Landing to return to Cersei? No, I'm not. Do I feel that Jaime deserved to spend his days with Brienne and that Brienne deserved to have Jaime? Yes, I do. A friend of mine, Ricardo, has pointed out to me that it is basically an addiction for Jaime, that despite everything, despite knowing what the best thing for him is, despite knowing that the right choice for him is to stay in Winterfell with Brienne, he's an addict. He is addicted to Cersei and he has to go back to her. I say my buddy Ricardo, very much of the opinion that this fits right in with Jaime's story. And I mean, he's right. He is right. But I still wish... I want things for the characters don't necessarily want for themselves, I guess was what it comes down to. So yeah, that's Jaime for you, I guess. We also see, of course, the Hound and Arya make it into the city as well. They seem to have a much better job of getting through the city and getting into the Red Keep than Jaime does. Jaime is obsessed with having his golden hand on show. I don't know why he doesn't wear a glove over it. But there he is in the crowd, in the press of the crowd as they're closing the gates and waving, going, "It's me, it's look, gold hand." But then he turns around and goes through the route he knows about, because Tyrion told him, with the boat. and up through the tunnels underneath the castle, which of course is where he meets everybody's least favourite character, and I don't mean most hated character, because Ramsay and Joffrey before that were definitely the most hated. But people love to hate those characters. People love that they're in there really waiting to turn that knife and get the victory over them. But nobody cares about Euron. Nobody cares about Euron Greyjoy, apart from Euron Greyjoy. I suspect even his actor doesn't really care about that character. The book version of Euron is very different and is a better character. But basically the show has never really made Euron a thing. And probably I don't want Jaime to go back to Cersei, as I just said, but what I really don't want is Euron to have had a part in Jaime's death. That is so undeserved. Euron should have, when Dany came down and blew his boat up, that should have been it for Euron. I would have been quite content for that to be his ending. I had no interest in the fight in the cave. I had no interest in that. I was glad that Jaime won, of course, sort of, but God, Euron. Blah. And then the rest of then we basically have the siege. The siege itself is spectacular. There's no getting away from it. The special effects, the scene setting, the dragon action, things exploding, things falling down, all really well done, really well staged, really visually amazing stuff. I really liked it. And I much preferred it to the Battle of Winterfell. Because within this, not only do we get to see it because it's in the daylight, but the other part of it, which by the way is interesting, I do wonder whether that, whether there is a comparison made there between the Battle of Winterfell and the Siege of King's Landing being night and day to each other, really. Because the other thing that we get, and we couldn't really get from the Battle of Winterfell, the other thing we really get from this is that we get personalities on show. And that's my big complaint of what was missing from the Battle of Winterfell, is that we had a lot of action, a lot of frantic, frenetic action, but we didn't get enough character moments. And what I loved about the Siege of King's Landing is there is a lot of character stuff built in there. There is a lot of great moments. Jon waiting for the bells, hoping for the bells, worried that the fight is going to break out, relieved when it doesn't, and then horrified when the battle takes a turn again. We see the Hound and Arya heading into the Red Keep, and the Hound at the last moment turning Arya away. We see Clegane Bowl. I've never been quite as hyped about Clegane Bowl as some, but God, that looked amazing. The two of them fighting there on those steps with the dragon overhead and I could have a wallpaper of that. That would be fantastic. But there were lots of little moments in there as well. I loved the Mountain just kind of casually throwing Clyburn against a wall. That was funny. And even funnier was Cersei just going, "No, I'm going to leave thee to this," and just sort of turtling off down the stairs by herself. I thought that was great. So there was lots of wonderful character moments in there. And then I can't talk about the Siege of King's Landing without talking about Daenerys' turn. What do I think about Daenerys' turn? I think in the moment it felt completely unearned. Now I know I don't want to add my voice to this. Very often I don't want to do that. And I do believe that Dany's path to this has been set up. I do believe that if you look back over the series, they've almost been relatively heavy-handed about pointing out the fact that Daenerys is going to make a turn to the Mad Queen. And I think there's plenty of stuff which has come up over the last couple of seasons particularly, but even since, the very early days, about her kind of go-to move pretty much always with everything that offends her and everything that gets in her way is Dragonfire. And pretty ruthlessly throughout the series she uses it like that. And we've seen her this season. All of the people that she's come to rely on for support has turned away from her, or died, or left her. We've seen that she has no connections anymore. She has spent her entire life has built up to this moment of coming back to Westeros, coming to King's Landing, and making a claim for the throne, or asserting her right to the throne. And her dream's been shattered, essentially. She has reached this point. She knows now that her dream of kind of coming in here as a champion of the people of Westeros, and as one of the characters in really back in early season 1 told her that they would just kind of bend and worship the rightful queen once the horrible Robert Baratheon was taken down. And she knows that was a lie. She knows that was a pipe dream now. She knows that was never going to happen. And she's kind of hollow. She's kind of empty. She's kind of... In the moment when Jon rejects her, or when Jon turns away from her advances, that, I think, is the moment when she chooses to go after sea. It's not the bells which trigger it, I've seen some people suggest. Having said all that, having said that they've done quite a lot of work to hint that this is coming, I feel that in the moment, at the time, the moment was unearned. Emilia Clarke did great. The expression, the face acting that she was doing there was great, but I just don't feel the leap from where she is to that action really made sense. I could completely see her going and obliterating the Red Keep and not caring about anything about the people who are in the keep or in the keep grounds, and that would be enough to show that she's taken that turn, because there were plenty of innocents in the Red Keep. But to wipe out the entire city, I just don't think it's earned. I just don't think it's earned. I completely get why it's there. I completely get the plot point. I completely support Dany turning. I just don't think they did enough to get her in a place where it's believable in the moment. I can backtrack and rethink and justify, but I feel for a moment like that, I should be really feeling it in my gut, not just being able to logic it out. So there we go. That is the episode, The Bells, and my take on it. It was spectacular, much more satisfying than the Battle of Winterfell, and some truly great moments in it, but a flawed diamond in this case, because I think they dropped... No, they didn't drop the ball, that's unfair, but they didn't quite stick the landing for the most important point on this episode. So that's the spoiler section. I'm not sure that I really want to do much in the way of speculation this time, because I think they've proved really that they're not going to do what we expect. Now, in some ways that's a good thing, in some ways that's a bad thing. I think that any attempt I had now to guess where the final episode is going, I genuinely don't know. I think the one thing that I'm reasonably confident will happen is that Daenerys will turn north back to Winterfell, because I think there's another queen, the Lady of Winterfell, that Dany is going to feel needs taking down, that is responsible for all this, because if she hadn't turned Tyrion and Varys against her, then maybe this would all have been different. Maybe she wouldn't have had to burn King's Landing. Maybe it would all have been fine, and it's all Sansa's fault, and I think Daenerys is turning north to Winterfell. I'm worried about that because actually the rate that dragons are shown to fly in this show, I'm not sure there's any way for Jon to catch up and try and prevent that. So does that mean we're going to get another death? Does that mean another castle is going to burn? Maybe. Probably not. But maybe. Who's going to end up on the Iron Throne? I've written a blog post about leadership in Game of Thrones. I might actually turn it into a video next week. I'm toying with that. So keep an eye out for that. But in that, I think that the best hope that Westeros has is in fact a figurehead king in Gendry Baratheon, supported by people who really know their stuff, supported by Tyrion as Hand and Sansa as Master of Coin. I think a small council like that, supporting essentially a figurehead like his father before him, really, in Gendry, could be actually a great solution to getting Westeros back on an even footing again. So that is pretty certain to be one thing which will certain to be one thing that will not happen. I'm really interested. I'm really interested in how they're going to finish this. Who's going to get the final kills? Who lives? Who dies? It's all still to play for, and that is pretty exciting. So I will see you in a couple of days for my review of the finale of Game of Thrones. Thanks for watching. Cheers.